Hello? Hello? Is anyone there? Hello? Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Thank you so much for watching. Wanted to talk quite a bit, a lot of different topics you'll see here. We're going to cover Tesla, Patreon Q&A, SpaceX, Neuralink, Boring Company, Podcar, and oh my God, it disappeared. Cool. So I want to start off with the big news. And thanks to the moderators and thanks to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden and all my Patreon supporters for helping this channel grow. Really appreciate everything that you guys do for me. This makes it easier to do what I'm doing. And anyway, but let's get into it. I want to start off with Tesla earnings announcement. I did a video, which I'll show you in a second, but Tesla's earnings announcement, they will drop their financial numbers for the second quarter of 2021. There will be an investor call that will happen after that. I think the data will drop around 4:30 p.m. East Coast time, 1:30 California time. The investor call will start at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, 2:30 California time. Usually starts later than that because Elon. I made a video yesterday or the day before yesterday. My Patreon supporters got to see it early. It's one of the benefits. And also exclusive content members of the YouTube channel also got to see this early. And some of my videos will be released to them early. I will probably do a video after the investor call, and it will be available to Patreon supporters and exclusive content members of the YouTube channel at night, and it will go public tomorrow morning. That's my rough plan for now. We'll see if I change my plans. So I really think I had some good insights in this video, and I recommend, if you haven't seen it, Rob Maurer, Tesla Daily. He has a really good video breaking down his preview of what he thinks is going to happen. A couple of differences between us worth talking about. My big number for the Q2 earnings report is what's the automotive revenue number and what's the top line, what's the total revenue number. My number for automotive revenue is 10.2 billion. Rob's is under 10 billion. I'm not sure why. I'm kind of puzzled by why Rob has his number so low, and he didn't really get into a discussion of why his number was so low. So that was striking to me. So that's, there's a lot of different things. I would encourage you to check out my video and see my take on what I think is coming. Check out Rob's video for his take on what's coming. I didn't notice any other videos that I thought were more insightful than Rob's. So I'm sure there are others out there, but you know, what are we looking for in these numbers? Rob was better at pointing out Bitcoin impairment. So we expect that there will be some negative on Tesla's earnings as a result of the drop in Bitcoin's valuation during the quarter. Even though Bitcoin's valuation is back up higher, Wall Street will see that. It will affect the earnings per share. Is it a big deal? I don't know. I thought Rob's forecast of earnings per share was roughly in line with what I'm thinking. He might have actually been a little higher. So really good stuff. Highly recommended. Again, Rob Maurer, Tesla Daily. Check out his podcast. And then when the earnings call is done, I'm going to do my video and we can look and see, you know, how close was I? Maybe I'll talk about how close Rob was, see if anybody else is worth talking about. Anyway, other big news. Elon tweeted, I think this was today or yesterday, Zach, Black Model 3, I actually met Zach at the Plaid event. Zach was talking about version 9, and Elon said several improvements are coming to the FSD beta version 9.1 Friday at midnight. This seems like a pretty optimistic thing for Elon. It's not 2 weeks. He made a 2 weeks joke also, but this is coming fast. What I had said before was that with version 9, FSD should be learning faster. And when Dojo comes along, FSD should be learning faster. So this is a pace of an update maybe every 3 weeks. I think it may accelerate to every 2 weeks. We're going to see how that goes. And then when Dojo comes, the improvements might come faster and faster and faster. I don't know when Dojo's coming. I don't think we're going to know when Dojo's coming, but we'll see. This was kind of an interesting deal. A couple of details about batteries for Tesla. There was a problem with fires in, I think it's Chevy Bolt EUVs. And Elon pointed out that large pouch cells. So Tesla uses cylindrical cells exclusively. I think the China-made lithium iron phosphate vehicles are using prismatic cells, which are big rectangular boxes, rather than cylinders. I don't think Tesla has gone to cylindrical for LFP yet. Maybe they'll go there. But pouch cells are a different format than that as well. And they expand and contract depending on charging. They're these pouches, and if it gets bigger and smaller, and Elon, I'm guessing, feels that that increases the risk of fire compared to cylindrical cells, which do not expand and contract significantly. And then, of course, he pointed out that fire risk is much worse in gasoline cars because they use combustion engines, and combustion means fires. So it's, as he says, it's literally in the name. Another battery detail, Elon was talking about the dry electrodes. That part of the process of making 4680 is something called dry electrode that they developed took from Maxwell, and they're developing it and trying to get it for volume production. It will help lower the cost of lithium-ion batteries. He said it's a huge amount of engineering has been put into trying to take Maxwell's proof of concept to take it to high-quality volume production, and we're still not quite done. That sounds like 4680 isn't ready yet. I feel like we're getting mixed messages. Does that mean that they're having trouble getting to volume production, but they do have high quality? Does it mean they're having trouble getting to high quality, but they're able to do volume production? Probably means that they're able to do volume production, but the yield rate is not high. In other words, 50% of the cells are bad. At high quality production, 90% of the cells would be good and 10% would be bad, or 95% would be good and 5% would be bad. And maybe they're only getting 30% of the cells working out right now, or 50% of the cells working out right now. As they improve yield, as they improve quality and yield, that means the cost per working cell goes down. So that's a pretty big step. Really big news about India. I was really surprised to see this, and I feel like it confirms what I've been saying, but other people are reading it differently. A guy named Madan Gowri said, Elon, please launch Tesla cars in India. Elon said, we want to do so, but import duties are the highest in the world by far of any large country. Moreover, clean energy vehicles are treated the same as diesel or petrol, which does not seem entirely consistent with the climate goals of India. So that was tweet one. So Elon wants to bring Tesla to India, but the import duties are too high. And his second point was, we are hopeful up at the top here. We are hopeful there will at least be a temporary tariff relief for electric vehicles. That would be much appreciated. Then someone asked Elon, Tesla and the gang asked him, what about locally assembled vehicles? Would that be a start? And Elon said, well, first we have to succeed with imported vehicles. And if we succeed with imported vehicles, then a factory in India is quite likely. Now, the India fans, the Tesla India fans got really, really excited and saying, see, a Tesla gigafactory in India is coming. Like, no, wait a minute. There's two hurdles here. One, you have to provide tariff relief so that Tesla can import vehicles for a reasonable price. Two, they have to succeed with the imported vehicles. And my contention all along has been, even if you got rid of tariff barriers, Tesla's lowest cost vehicle currently is around $35,000. And maybe with the 2023 vehicle, they'll get a vehicle down to $25,000. And maybe with local production in India, they'd get down to $20,000. The volume of sales of vehicles at that price point in India is very, very low. It's a very large country, but it's a very poor country. It's funny, Hassan, one of a guy I follow on Twitter, follows me on Twitter, he said, well, what about Pakistan? Well, Pakistan has 1/7 of India's population, and they're even poorer. It's very hard to locate a gigafactory in a country where people can't afford to buy your car. And Tesla wants to test the market with imported vehicles, but it's really hard to succeed with imported vehicles if they're going to jack the price up the vehicle because of import tariffs. And, you know, there's this hope that the Indian government will figure this out. They'll decide, you know, we really would like to, let me pull back this other tweet. If India is genuine about its goals about climate, India should provide some relief to importing electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, because that's really good for the environment. You know, what are the chances that the Indian government follows that? I haven't seen any hints of it yet. I mean, maybe Elon thinks something's happening. We are hopeful there will be temporary tariff relief for electric vehicles. Does that mean that there's been some communication between Tesla and the Indian government? There's actually hope for that? Or is he just hoping? Really unclear. I would love to see a large volume of electric vehicles hit the Indian market. And something wrong, Mark? Okay. I would like to see Tesla crack the Indian market to see a large volume of electric vehicles, making the air less polluted in India, making, I think there's a lot of potential benefits there, but I don't see any promise for this in the near future. I want it to be true, but I'm very negative on the reality. I don't think it's happening anytime soon. So, other news, Marcus Brownlee did a review, or an initial review, I should say, of the Tesla Model S Plaid. He's got one. He's driven it around quite a bit. He's going to be driving it for a couple more weeks. He liked it a lot. He was very critical, not so much of the yoke steering wheel itself, but of how the buttons are placed on the yoke steering wheel. And Elon responded, and he said it was a good review and a fair critique. And as he said, in general with interfaces, all input is error. With each software update, the car's intuition will get better. You will need to press buttons less and less, and it will know when to ignore accidental button presses. The problem is the buttons are on the steering wheel hub, and as you turn the wheel around, the buttons move, so they're not necessarily where you expect them to be, as compared to a turn signal lever, which is always in the same place. On the yoke, the turn signal is on the hub, so you've got to find it. And there's other buttons that you might want to hit, and there's no horn press. So Marcus Brownlee thinks it's not really a great design. Elon thinks, okay, it may not be what you want now, but it will get better on its own. So we'll see how that goes. I thought that was interesting little detail. Marcus Brownlee's a very, very prominent YouTuber. I'm kind of a fan of Marcus Brownlee. I think he makes great videos. He's done some great videos about a bunch of vehicles. He did the Mercedes EQS. I thought he did a really good video about that. So the last thing about Tesla that I'll mention here in the news portion is Elon said that they are going to be making their supercharger network open to other EVs later this year. I believe this was a reference to the United States only at first, and other countries may come along. There was a question about it. He said eventually other countries, or eventually the whole world. My guess is the US and maybe Canada will be this year, and then maybe they'll be able to reach out to other countries over time. Not clear what the rollout's going to be, but they're going to make them available to other EVs later this year. Great stuff. I don't see that there's a lot of other EVs on the road and that this matters a whole lot. I think they can spin this a lot of different ways. Tesla owners who use supercharger networks a lot may not be happy because this means that they may pull into a supercharger station and there's a Ford Mustang Mach-E charging in a port that they would have used. And so it takes them a little longer to get a charge. The real upside of this, merch at elonbits.com, the real upside of this is, imagine if Ford Motor Company owned 25,000 gasoline pumps. What would that do to the valuation of Ford? Tesla owns 25,000 superchargers. And I think maybe it already owns close to 30,000 superchargers. We'll see in the next report. So, will Tesla find a way to turn the superchargers into a profit center? What price do they charge for the electricity? Do they make money on the electricity? Are they over time amortizing the superchargers, and will usage mean they make money off just the charging? Will they be able to deploy stores or other revenue producing features at supercharger stations that allow Tesla to make additional money from having superchargers? This is going to be an interesting thing to see. And then the other side of it is, you're driving a Mustang Mach-E or a Volkswagen ID4, and you pull into a Tesla supercharger station, you see all these Teslas, and you start talking to Tesla owners, and you start realizing, I should have bought a Tesla. And maybe it's a way of swinging owners of other EVs to saying, hey, we should try these Teslas out more. And maybe it ends up selling other EVs. And that's a good point. Scott from Maryland says people will have to download the Tesla app to be able to charge their vehicle at a Tesla supercharger, so they get exposed to Tesla marketing, buy solar roof, buy solar panels, buy a power wall, buy Tesla merch. Who knows what they'll be able to do with that. So there's a lot of promise there. Okay, so that's the best tariff is no tariff. Amen, Mark. Okay, so let's move on to Patreon Q&A. And before I get into Patreon Q&A, I did have one piece of news that I realized after I made my outline. Lucid Motors and CCIV Churchill Capital closed their business combination. Their voting was resolved. They did have a glitch. Comically, Their emails were going into spam and they didn't get enough votes for one of their critical votes, but they got it all done. The stock will begin trading on Monday under the ticker LCID. Lucid gets an infusion of cash of about $4.4 billion that will allow them to continue operating and make progress on the Lucid Air and beyond. People know I'm a big Lucid skeptic, but this is happening. So I looked, and so far I don't see any SEC filings under the LCID stock ticker. It will be interesting to see if we start seeing SEC filings, when we start seeing SEC filings, and if any news changes happen with Lucid Motors. I just wanted to cover that before I move on to Lucid Motors questions. So, Shannon asks, scoured the videos but didn't catch anything about the possibility of Tesla selling their skateboard to the OEMs. I haven't seen, that's something that's been talked about in the past. I haven't seen any indication of companies wanting to buy Tesla's skateboard or Tesla wanting to sell their skateboard. Tesla basically uses every skateboard. Skateboard is the wheels and the platform, everything in the vehicle below the shell and the seats and, you know, whatever, and the battery pack, the powertrain. As far as I can tell, Tesla sells every one they make under their own brand. What would Tesla gain by selling the skateboard to someone else until they're able to make so many of them they can't sell them themselves? And I just don't see that happening. The other thing that Shannon said was that he's currently in the Dominican Republic. He or she is currently in the Dominican Republic. Totally see how a single-seater EV would save lives. Holy crap. Shannon, I would love to talk to you more about the EV in the Dominican Republic. I guess I'm going to do that update now. I'm going to be doing an update here. I'm going to be doing an update on the Podcar down here. So we'll be covering that later in the video. And Mark asked, would like to hear an answer in the earnings call to FSD beta V9 interventions per mile. When will Tesla insurance be rolled out? Okay, so I don't think we're going to hear that in the earnings call. Maybe we'll hear that. We never know what tidbits are going to get dropped in the earnings call. I suspect we're not going to hear that. And I don't think interventions per mile is really the most important measure of FSD. There's a lot of things that Tesla is doing to measure FSD. I did an interview a while back. Check my channel for Dauma, D-O-U-M-A. James Dauma. We talked about what they're measuring to see how FSD is doing. Interventions is probably a relatively low priority signal as to improving FSD. Mark asked, when will Tesla insurance be rolled out in states other than California? I haven't heard any updates about insurance. Maybe that is something that will come up in the investor call. I don't think that insurance is that important for the long-term future of Tesla, but I do think it matters in the short term. The problem is there's no demand shortage. It's not like people aren't buying cars because they can't get insurance. They're selling every car they make. They're sold out through the third quarter and beyond. So I don't think it's a huge issue. People think having insurance makes it easier to sell cars, and maybe it does. But so far, that doesn't seem to be a big problem. I think in the long run, FSD means that insurance is a zero. It doesn't really add much in the future. Merck wants to know the FSD subscription take rate. I don't know if we're going to get that. Maybe that is something they've talked about, and will subscription, that would be a nice thing for them to discuss. Will FSD beta wide release be in the third quarter? Elon has suggested that, but I think it may take longer than he said. He said version 9.1 is going to be Friday. Eventually we'll go to version 10, and then maybe in version 11 we'll go to wide release. Maybe in version 10. I have a feeling fourth quarter, if we're lucky, we'll see FSD and wide release I think sometime in the fourth quarter we'll see FSD and wide release, but we'll see. Will batteries be available for all the Tesla vehicles that could be manufactured in 2022? And will they be available for Tesla's energy storage opportunities? Tesla is going to be battery constrained for years. Drew Baglino said that they expect to more than double batteries from suppliers in 2022 compared to 2021. So that's a lot more batteries. I think it may be that for a short time, Tesla has more battery cells than they can make vehicles, but I think they will catch up on vehicles. All right, so I'm going to move on to SpaceX, and we're going to come back to more Patreon questions and the chat Q&A later. When we get down to chat Q&A at the bottom down here, we'll do more questions. So SpaceX, a lot of news with SpaceX. The big news was that there was a static fire test of the Super Heavy booster. I hope you watched it. Check it out on YouTube. I think it's on the SpaceX channel. There's other channels that covered it. They lit up 3 engines. Elon said it was a full boost, a full test. And along with that, Elon was asked what's going to happen to that booster. They were thinking they were going to scrap that booster. That's B3 because they're developing B4. Sounds like B4 is not moving along that fast. So Elon said, depending on progress with booster 4, we might try a 9-engine firing on booster 3. So they may use the same booster to test out a 9-engine firing. Ultimately, it's going to have something like 30 engines. But they're scaling up, and booster 4 may be the one that goes to orbit, or that takes Starship to orbit. Another Starship detail. Let me move this over a little bit. Another Starship detail, flaps. Somebody made I think it's Neopork did an updated drawing or design, rendering of what Starship's going to look like with flaps, or looks like with its flaps. Elon said that flight tests have showed they can make body flaps narrower and lighter, so I think we're going to see the next Starship that comes out is going to have smaller flaps. That will make them narrower and lighter. That means that they're easier to control. They can move them more quickly. So we're going to see a new, and that means that it weighs less, which is really, really important when you're trying to launch payloads into space, and when you're trying to launch payloads to distant orbits like Mars. The lighter the flaps, or the moon, the lighter the flaps, the more other stuff you can carry, or the more fuel you can carry, which means you can go farther. A lot of really important details, or both. So those are important details. There was an image of a test nose cone, and Elon at the bottom here talks about that this is a Pathfinder test, and he said that payload bay door dimensions are still under debate, and this we already knew. The volume inside the nose cone, the volume of payload in Starship is 1,000 cubic meters. That's a lot. That's a lot of payload. There's a lot of room in there. So this is really exciting stuff. Somebody followed up on that, asking Elon, could Starship theoretically return Hubble? In other words, could Starship fly up into orbit, capture the Hubble Space Telescope, and bring it back down to Earth rather than have it destroyed on reentry? And Elon said, sure, that is something that they would be able to do. Whether they will do it, whether it's worth doing, that's a whole other question, but it is a possible mission for Starship in the future to bring Hubble back to Earth. And then the last thing I have here is there's this photo that somebody posted, which I'm not going to include, but you can see this low to the ground shot of the Starbase name. And in the background there, you can see mid bay and high bay. Elon says construction starts soon on a much larger high bay just north of the current high bay. I'm guessing that means they're going to use a larger high bay. I'm not sure what it's for. That's an open question there. What are they using? What is a much larger high bay for? Is that to hold both Starship and Super Heavy in one place? I thought that the current high bay was big enough for the boosters. So what is the need for a larger high bay? That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to be looking to Scott Manley and Tim Dodd from Everyday Astronaut to see if we can get, or Crispy and NASA Spaceflight channels, to see if I can get an answer to this question. What's the point of a larger high bay? And Maria Boca Chica gal, one of them is going to have a better answer to this than I have, and I'm curious to hear what's the big idea. What do they need that for? So, just really quick, Richard asks about the next Starlink satellite launch. I don't know when the next launch is, but I think they've been doing them once or twice a month. I don't think the next launch will be Starship. Starship is not going to do an orbital launch until late August at the earliest, and it won't do a payload like a Starlink payload until later in the year, if not next year. So we're going to continue to see Falcon 9s launching Starlink payloads into orbit. As far as I know, they're on rough pace of, once or twice a month for Starlink payloads. So, all right. So let's move on to Neuralink. Now, this is going to be fairly brief, but there's a couple of big things that happened this past week with Neuralink, and I just retweeted them yesterday. First, I'm going to show you a little bit more about this. Siobhan Ellis, who is a project director at Neuralink, spoke to a Canadian audience. This was a few months ago, but it didn't get noticed until just like the past week. So, and then that was her. That's her up here. And then down here, Joseph O'Doherty was interviewed on the spectrum.ieee.org website. And just a little bit more about this. So here's Siobhan Zillis. Great video with her. Check my Twitter and you'll see, it's yesterday, I think. You can check my Twitter and you'll see a link, yesterday afternoon that I tweeted both of these. I would really strongly encourage you to watch this video of her talking about what Neuralink is doing. I'm probably gonna do a video this week going in depth on these two interviews. So Joseph O'Doherty, Joseph O'Doherty was the second interview. That was a print interview. And he's also a Neuralink engineer. You can see this is just a small part of this interview. He goes in depth here about how many contacts, how many electrodes are on each thread that's inserted in the brain. Do they do more threads and fewer contacts per thread? Or they're working on all kinds of questions like this. Really good interview. So I'm going to go in depth on this. Probably this week I'm going to do that conversation. So that was, I don't have a lot about Neuralink. There's a channel called Neuropod with Ryan Tanaka, who I interviewed in the past, and Ryan has a video, and he pointed out another company called Kernel. I think the Kernel founder just did an interview with Lex Friedman. I didn't finish watching that interview yet, so I'm waiting to see. I believe that they don't do invasive. They don't go inside the skull. They do something from outside the skull. So I'm going to look and check that out, but I haven't watched that yet. I don't think that's going to be that insightful. Apparently, Elon was talking about working with Kernel and then decided to start Neuralink instead. So let's move on. Boring Company. So Gasoff, a Twitter account I don't recall seeing before, visited the new Resort World Casino and noticed, he noticed the Vegas Loop signs and other features. So I'm going to show you some pictures here. You can see a sign pointing the direction to get to the Vegas Loop. You can see the escalators down to where the Vegas Loop is, and his finger is pointing to where, you probably can't read that, but it says B2 Vegas Loop on the sign. It's just, different directions to what you can get to. And then you can see the part of the tunnel that's visible from Resort World, and another angle on a different part of the tunnel at Resort World. So Resort World is coming close to being finished, or the Vegas Loop connection to Resort World is close to being finished. Boring Revolution channel with Will Bradbury did a video. He thinks that it's not done and they're using proof rock to finish it. When I was out in Vegas, I spoke with a Boring Company employee who told me he thought the tunnels were mostly done to Resort World, so I'm not sure what's left that needs to be done to make that connection. Resort World, so the Vegas Convention Center part of the system is really an extra segment. The loop itself is this big loop that's going to be going under the Vegas Strip and covering a large part of Las Vegas. And Resort World, I think, is going to be the first station on the main loop. So that's going to be interesting to see the progress of that. I think Proof Rock is pretty soon going to be starting to do the whole loop. So very, very fun stuff. Okay. So that was it for Boring Company. Let's move on. I'm just going to talk briefly about the Podcar. Before I get into the Podcar, though, I came up with this before I did my outline as well. If you didn't see it, Elon Musk, Cathie Wood, and Jack Dorsey had a conversation at the B-Word Bitcoin conference where they talked about a lot of things. There was some really interesting stuff in there. I think I left out. Oh, let me find my. I realized I left something out. Sorry about this. Elon specifically mentioned a concern. Let's see if I can get this right. That Tesla's bank balances have negative interest rates in Europe. And this is one of the reasons why Elon talks about cryptocurrencies. If you're a company like Tesla and you hold money in banks and you're getting a negative interest rate, which means you're paying the bank to hold your money, that's not really a good thing. If you can hold some of your assets in cryptocurrency instead of cash or bank accounts, that's better for the company as a whole. So I think that's a reason why, when people wonder why is Elon talking about Bitcoin, why is Elon talking about Dogecoin, it's like, well, Tesla is losing money by holding money in banks. For a lot of reasons, banks are very inefficient. Their transactions are slow. Dogecoin and Bitcoin have much faster transactions, like literally seconds versus days. Huge, huge difference. So a lot of real, maybe even less than seconds. So really, really big deal there. So I just wanted to cover that. Now, I wanted to give an update on the Podcar. So I met with and a guy named Tesla Bob introduced me to a guy in Fort Lauderdale, and we had dinner and we talked about doing the Podcar with this guy, and I liked him, and I was leaning towards working with him, but I had a few other meetings scheduled, and then I forget whether it was the next day or a few days later, I met with this friend of mine. It was just a couple days ago. I met with this friend of mine, also down in south of Fort Lauderdale. He lives up here, but he works. I met him down in south of Fort Lauderdale in Hollywood. Went to lunch, we talked, and he's going to help me do a computer-aided design for an alpha prototype for the Podcar. And that may lead to him building the alpha prototype, or it may be that I use his CAD design to talk to someone else. But I sent him a proposed agreement. He got back to me. He wanted some changes. I made the changes. I just sent him an updated proposed agreement an hour or so ago, maybe 2 hours ago. 2 hours ago, probably. And hopefully he'll get back to me. He'll sign it. We're going to move forward with a very early stage of moving forward with the Podcar. I'm passionate about this. I think this is going to happen. If you haven't followed this before, Dojo Army says, how much will a working prototype cost to make roughly? I think $10,000, $20,000 for a not very functional prototype, a barely functional prototype. Not something that would be, this is an alpha prototype. This is something that we get going, and that helps us decide, okay, what do we need to do to get to a working beta prototype? And once the beta prototype comes along, okay, how can we get to the point of manufacturing something? So the Podcar will not be stainless steel. Actually, I don't know what the Podcar will be made of, actually. We haven't gotten to that point yet. I actually kind of want to make it a plastic if possible, but we'll see. Design goals, roughly 3 feet wide, 8 feet long, maybe 7.5 feet long. As light as possible, should be under 1,000 pounds. I know what wheels and tires I want to use. I know what battery pack I want to use, or what, not battery pack, but what types of batteries I want to use. I have a rough idea what kind of motor I want to use. A lot of little details that need to be worked out. My friend Andy, he has some experience in the field. So I don't think he's the guy who can take us to manufacturing, but he might be the guy that can take us close. So we'll see. I'm excited about that, and we'll see where it goes. So, the lighter we can get the vehicle, the simpler we can get the vehicle, the easier to manufacture we can get the vehicle. I mean, the alpha prototype will not have shock absorbers. It will not have springs. It will not have HVAC. It will not be comfortable. But, the idea is, how simple can we make this thing? And then how can we scale it up to something better? We'll see. I want it to be as low cost as possible and as functional as possible. This is a Warren Redlich project. I have an idea. I'll tell you that I'm thinking I'm going to form a corporation named Alrita, A-L-R-I-T-A Corporation, or Alrita LLC. My father's name was Alan. My mother's name is Rita, so Alrita, which also sounds like all righta. It's all right. That's not the name of the Podcar. That's the name of the company, but I haven't solidified that yet. That's just an idea. So basically, yes, an electric go-kart with sort of a body. I mean, it is basically, we're somewhere between an electric go-kart and an electric remote-controlled car. Something like that. And we're moving forward with that, and I'm excited about it. So I'm sharing it with you because my audience has been interested in it, and I can't stop myself from going forward. I'm going to spend some money and see, and then I'm going to spend some more money and then see, and then at some point I may move to crowdfunding. And I think Andy, who I'm talking to, can help me get there. Oh, Doge Army says, Warren will have a Podcar made before Lucid has a car. I think I'll have an alpha prototype of the Podcar before Lucid delivers a car to a customer. That should be a goal. That should be a goal. I will have an alpha prototype of my Podcar before Lucid delivers a vehicle to a customer. That sounds like a good goal. I like it. All right. So that was that. I want to move on. Now we're moving on to the chat Q&A. Before we get to the chat questions, so hold your chat questions. I just want to finish the Patreon questions. And again, if you want your questions answered early either in the Patreon Q&A section here or at the beginning of the chat Q&A, please support this channel on Patreon or ask questions on the YouTube exclusive content. It's better to do it on Patreon. Bert asks, in all the boring tunnels to come, will we ever be able to drive our personal Teslas in them? Sort of. You won't be able to drive in them. Your Tesla will be able to self-drive in them. The plan is that vehicles that have self-driving software that meets whatever standard Boring Company requires will be allowed to automatically drive in the tunnels. Humans will not be allowed to drive in the tunnels once we get to that point. And that is one of the design ideas for the Podcar, is that it should be able to operate in Boring Company tunnels. I think it'd be more efficient for Boring Company tunnels than Tesla's. But we'll see. And no, I won't let reporters drive the Podcar. Humans will not be driving the Podcar. The goal for the Podcar is it will drive itself. My company will not IBO for any time in the foreseeable future. The dream of the Podcar. Rich Rebuilds is in Massachusetts. I'm looking for people in Florida. The dream of the Podcar is for me to do as much as possible on my own dime. So if Tesla stock goes up, that makes it easier for me to afford to do more myself and get it as far along on my own money as possible before at some point maybe I go to crowdfunding or venture capital. Probably crowdfunding is something I'm looking at, but we'll see. And the rules and regulations and SEC stuff might change, so it's hard to say right now. But I think the more I can do on my own and not risk I don't like taking other people's money if it's too risky. I really want to do it on my own dime, and then it also gives me more control over the future if I've taken it further along. Does that answer? So IPO, I like IPO is so far down the road I can't even imagine it. The goal, get to the point where we can maybe make 100 of them and then ship them to the Dominican Republic or the Bahamas and work out a deal with the Caribbean government to say, hey, or work out a deal with the Boring Company. Hey, can we try these out in your system, in your country? And let's see if we can save some lives. That would be that's sort of the rough idea of how we start going to market. And not that we sell them, we operate them as our own fleet, or we sell them to fleet operators in a particular country. Ethan asks, how has the global chip shortage affected Tesla? We know from Elon's, I think, testimony that the global chip shortage affected shipments of Powerwall. It's been difficult to make power. I think it's affected a lot of things in a lot of different ways, but we know for certain that it slowed the production of Powerwall. So that hinders energy storage numbers for Q2. So that may mean that we don't see as much of a growth in energy storage, although I don't think that affects Megapack, and Megapack probably plays a bigger role in the energy storage numbers. There's some theories that it's affecting Model S and X. So far, I haven't seen any indication it's affecting Models 3 and Y. But we'll see. My neighbor Brian asks, I keep hearing about Cybertruck coming before the Model Y. He's hearing possibly the first truck coming off the line in October. It seems highly unlikely. I'm hopeful. What have you heard? What I'm looking for, Brian, and Brian's right over there, probably, unless he's gone somewhere. Brian's house is my neighbor. What I'm looking for, Brian, is the investor report. The financials are going to drop at 4:30 p.m. roughly Eastern time. And we're going to see on page 7 of the Q1 report, so maybe it's still on page 7 of the Q2 report, the production capacity chart. And we should see whether Cybertruck changes from in development to construction. That's a sign. If it doesn't change to construction, that means Cybertruck is not coming that soon. Similarly, for Tesla Semi, we should see that Tesla Semi is in construction. Maybe we see capacity numbers. It's really going to be interesting to see what they do with that chart. But I do not think that Cybertruck is far enough along that it will beat Model Y in Texas. I think Model Y in Texas is coming first. Honestly, I hope I'm wrong, because both Brian and I are waiting for Cybertrucks. So Brian is ahead of me on the Cybertruck list, but both Brian and I are waiting for our Cybertrucks, so we want them. But I don't think it's happening. I think that Elon has said before, it sounds like it's unlikely that any Cybertrucks will be delivered before January, where I think Model Y should deliver out of Texas by November or December. Damien asks, do I think FSD will get so good as to recognize and remember faces, etc.? Yes, I do think that FSD, I think if you watch FSD, and I think it's Green the Only's videos, FSD is like telling what kind of car it's seeing if it's a Tesla and what color it is. It's already recognizing things like that. So yeah, I don't think facial recognition is going to be that hard. I do think that's coming. I don't think it will necessarily. Here's what's really interesting. Will it recognize facial expressions? That'll be good. I think there's a lot of potential for FSD. Elon has talked about FSD just being the beginning of a real-world AI, being able to process the real world. And I see it for like home security systems. What if you had a camera system that was able to recognize the face of somebody walking up to your door, and if it's somebody doesn't recognize, it's an alert. If it's somebody who's come to the house before, okay. If it's you, it knows it's you and it doesn't worry. So if it's somebody from your family, it doesn't worry. One potential use is keyless entry into your Tesla. No more key fobs or even entry cards. I don't think that's a terribly important use. I think that's a very unlikely use scenario. Maybe that would matter. You could also send the car to relatives by FSD and tell your car, go to my mother's house and give her access to the car. That's an interesting theory, that FSD could recognize the intended passenger by their face. I like that. I think that's pretty good. I like it, Damien. Another potential use, looking for FBI's most wanted criminals from mugshots while driving. I think a potential use for the FSD is an alert goes out there. There was an incident that happened at such and such a location at such and such a time, and Tesla can query the fleet for images and video from there to see if they can identify what happened and track wherever the vehicle or people went who were involved in the incident. I do think there's potentially, child goes missing, there's a kidnapping, and hey, let's check all the Teslas in the area to see what their cameras picked up. I don't know if they store enough video for that to work, but maybe that would work. Certainly if something was in Sentry mode, maybe, I guess that's a question, can Teslas be outfitted to store more video so that you can use it for a purpose like that? Pretty interesting idea. Earnings call question, and Damien wants me to ask Elon a question for an update on when AI Day will be. I don't know whether that question will be asked at the earnings call, and I have a feeling it won't be answered either. If there is an answer, it'll be 2 weeks. Okay, let's see what we got here. If you have questions for the chat Q&A, please submit them now. Type them into the chat. Let's see what we got. I'm just looking up. Of course, we appreciate super chats, super stickers. Any support is greatly appreciated. Let's see. David asks, what do I think about KULR technology to prevent thermal runaway in the battery tray? Is it necessary or not? I don't know what KULR is. I don't think that Tesla has a problem with thermal runaway in the battery tray. I think that lithium iron phosphate which is becoming more common in Tesla vehicles, doesn't have that problem hardly at all. And as far as I can tell, Tesla's thermal management of its nickel-based batteries is working really well. I'm not sure what KULR is, so I can't really answer that question. Byton tried face key, it was a flop. Yeah, well, whatever somebody else tried, Mark, is not a sign of what Tesla might work on. Matt says, just signed for Tesla solar glass with ROI less than 3 years. Tesla offered 0.99% loan to close the deal. Why didn't you consider this Tesla loan? We didn't discuss a loan. I don't think my ROI was going to be less than 3 years on Tesla solar roof. Our cost was going to be very high. Our roof project, our non-solar roof is going to be installed starting Monday, tomorrow. There's actually tar paper on our roof right now. They brought that on Friday, and they're supposedly starting on Monday unless it rains heavy. So our roof will be cheap, but our roof is going to cost about $40,000. The Tesla solar roof, all total, was going to cost about $100,000. So the ROI to pay back $60,000 difference is a lot longer than 3 years. I think it was going to save us about $200 a month on our electric bill, $2,400 a year. It's like 30 years to get the ROI. I don't know how you're getting 3 years. Maybe your solar roof's going to cost you a lot less. So, and to make up $60,000 is going to be a lot. I think even with tax credits, it's still like 10, 15, 20 years to make it up. So, thank you for your support, Benjamin. What will the Podcar be named? I am keeping the Podcar name secret. The name of the company, at least tentatively, is the Alrita LLC. But the Podcar name is too good. I can't give it away yet. I'm dying to tell people, but I'm not giving it away. It's too good. I literally haven't told anyone. Not one person. Maybe I told my wife. Maybe I told my daughter. I'm not sure. Dave LaDeluca says, how different will be the FSD software? Let me move this over so I'm not staring away. How different will the FSD software between semi-Cybertruck and the normal smaller road cars? I believe it's the same software. I think the software has to recognize the different dimensions of the vehicle that it's operating on, but I don't think it requires a different... I don't think the software changes significantly. It's just the software has to know what size the vehicle is. Solar roof tiles would improve value of home significantly. Yeah, probably. But, yeah, they probably would improve the value of the home, but a new roof improves the value of the home already. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of reasons why it's not clear in our neighborhood whether it would add that much value. Its value is just not clear whether there's that much value. What is the predicted mileage life of LFP battery packs from Fred? Thank you, Fred. That's a great question. I believe that lithium iron phosphate battery cells typically have at least a 4,000 cycle life and maybe a 10,000 cycle life. At a 250 mile range, 4,000 cycle life would be 1,000,000 miles. 10,000 cycle life would be 2.5 million miles. So very, very long life for lithium iron phosphate battery packs. That is actually why I'm probably going to go with lithium iron phosphate for mine. Oh, Eric asks, what is my verdict on Alex Guberman after the interview? I'm impressed with Alex that he was willing to come on the channel and have the conversation. I was not impressed with his lack of self-awareness. I think he blames me and he blames others for criticizing him rather than taking a look at what he's doing in his content, in his videos, and thinking, am I doing something wrong? I think that when you face, and I believe that my earlier video that I made criticizing him caused him to lose like 1,000 or 2,000 subscribers. I think a lot of people have been angry with him for a while, and my video sort of sparked a revolution against him or a coup. And I think he should recognize that he's doing something wrong. And he basically wanted me to apologize as if I had done something wrong, which is externalizing the problem rather than internalizing the problem. The only reason my video was effective is because so many other people felt the same way as I did. And we all feel that way, not because he's the good guy, but because he's doing something wrong. And he needs to accept that. And so far as I can tell, he did not accept that. So let's see here. Okay. Papa G says, I have yet to see any updates on when the 30X steel will be available from SDI Steel Dynamics in Texas since last December estimate of this fall for first availability. I think Tesla has, I don't know if you're talking about Tesla, you're talking about SpaceX for the steel. It's apparent that they have an adequate supply of steel because they keep making starships and they keep making boosters. So they're doing a lot of steel there. I think they want the steel produced locally to test to Giga Austin, Giga Texas, so that it makes it easier to get steel for both Starship and for Giga Texas. So I don't think that's a pressing problem. I think they have an adequate supply of steel for the short term. It's just lowering the cost of steel in the long run and improving the timing of when they get the steel. Can I talk about Meet Kevin's campaign for governor in California from Dave LaDuca? Do I agree with his plans? I don't agree with Kevin on every policy issue. I think I agree that I believe that he's the best candidate I've seen for governor of California. And I don't live in California. I don't vote in California. I'm very impressed with Kevin. He's a very genuine person. He's the opposite of a classic politician. Meet Kevin. I did interview Meet Kevin on my channel, and he interviewed me on his channel. So we have done videos together. Wonderful guy. Really excited for him. It's an uphill battle, but I think he actually has a shot of being the next governor of California. And if you live in California, and 20% of my audience is in California, if you live in California, please support Meet Kevin. Check out his channel. See what you can do to help him. He's way better than Gavin Newsom. And as far as I can tell, he's way better than anybody else I've seen on the California ballot. Alex was told a few years ago by Tesla Kim that he was regarded as a traitor by the community, and he found it amusing and denied it. He hasn't changed. Yeah, no, I don't know if I would call him a traitor. I just think he's taken on this bias. Striker Ace asks, how much Tesla Kila do I have? I did not buy any Tesla Kila. I don't have the Boring Company flamethrower. That's my big regret is I didn't buy not a flamethrower. That's probably my biggest regret of all Tesla merch. I don't drink tequila, so the tequila isn't exciting for me. Do I still think Lucid is a fraud? Did you already address this? Yes, I still think Lucid is a fraud. I just made a video about it like last week. I'm probably gonna. I may have another video coming depending on whether they have any news after their merger. I'm expecting that they're going to have a merger. They're going to have some kind of news after the merger, and I'll deal with that then. Would I YouTube the Cyber Cabin project? Actually, Tesla Bob connected me with somebody who may be able to get me over a hurdle on getting the land ready to start building. So there may be some progress on that, but there's no progress yet. Declan says, hey, Warren, I know you don't like short-term stock predictions, but what's your gut feeling tell you the stock will do after Q2 earnings? So let me talk about this. Declan, I'm glad you asked the question. I can't predict Wall Street. I am making a video about my feelings about Wall Street. That's coming soon. My gut feeling is what happens with the earnings number? Let's suppose earnings per share is over $1 a share, which Wall Street is predicting 94 cents a share. Rob Maurer predicts $1.07 a share. Gary Black is also over $1 a share, I think. Gary is giving numbers like ignoring the Bitcoin impairment. What is the dollars per share? And I think you can look at it, and Rob mentioned, okay, if you take the trailing 12 months after $1 a share, then you're looking at a price earnings ratio of something like 600. And I think, well, let's look at the next 4 quarters, this quarter and the next 3 quarters. And I think you're looking at close to more than $4 a share in earnings per share. You're probably getting to $5 a share and maybe getting to $6 a share when you add the next 4 quarters together. You get to $6 a share, Tesla's PE ratio. PE ratio is a term, I probably should make a video about PE ratio in Tesla. Price to earnings ratio. If the stock is getting $6 a share in earnings and the stock is trading at $600, then the price earnings ratio is 100. Amazon's price earnings ratio is around 70. So Tesla is growing much faster than Amazon. It's at a much earlier stage of its growth curve. Its price earnings ratio should probably be 200 or higher. And if you're looking forward and you're saying, hey, they're going to be making $6 a share, like the earnings for 2021 could hit $5 a share. And at $200 a share, at 200 price earnings ratio, that would mean a stock price of 1,000. So does Wall Street at some point catch up to, hey, by Q4, this is going to be $1,000 stock. It's silly to be selling it at $650 a share. But it's just so impossible to figure out how Wall Street sees these things. It dropped. For those who don't know, I bought 3 more shares. The stock dropped to $625 a share, and I metaphorically searched my couch for change and came up with enough money to buy 3 more shares of Tesla stock because I was so excited it was so cheap. Sandy Penn says Larry Elder polls the highest for the recall election. I like Larry Elder. I think that Meet Kevin maybe has a better shot of winning, but I like Larry. I'm actually a fan of Larry Elder as well. John asks, did I get a Tesla class action mailer from J&D Legal Administration restock purchases sales? No, I did not. That's a really tight window from August 7th, 2018 to August 17th, 2018. I probably didn't buy any in that window. Any chance that the Cybertruck is amphibious? I think the Cybertruck will float for brief periods of time, but I don't think it's a long-term floater. Let's see. My buddy went to Lucid Store in Manhattan. They aren't allowed to speak about how much the car will cost there. Yeah, if you get a chance to go to a Lucid Store, it's kind of interesting. They wouldn't let us sit in the car when I went. They kind of didn't even want us to touch the car. I thought that was crazy. Would I be shocked by a Tesla split soon? I wouldn't be shocked, but I just don't care. I don't know why people care about splits. I think splits are unimportant. I bought Amazon in 2013 for $261 a share. It's up like 13x. It hasn't split. I haven't cared the whole time. I don't know anything about GGPI and Polestar. What is GGPI? I don't know about that, Fook. Is the Hummer a fraud? I don't think the Hummer is a fraud. I just don't think it's going to be a good vehicle. I think it's going to be extremely expensive. I think it's going to be extremely heavy. It's going to have a low payload because it's so heavy. How about the BC hat? I don't know. The Boring Company hat. I didn't jump on. I'm not a merch guy in terms of buying like company merch. I like my own merch. Be less wrong. ElonBits.com. I like my own merch. Check out the stainless steel mug and the shirts. Great question from Daniel. I talk about this a lot. Daniel says, as a lawyer, thank you for your support, Daniel. As a lawyer, how do I think full autonomy will change laws? Drunk driving, stop signs, lights, speeding, etc. Daniel, search my channel after this video. Search my channel for a video about the 10 industries I think Tesla, Robotaxi, etc. will destroy. And let me just see. I'm going to change the settings to slow the chat. How do I do that? Edit. Live chat. I'm going to go into slow mode and make it 30 seconds. I'm just slowing down the chat a little bit because it starts going too fast when we get over 1,000 people in the room. So I've had a bunch of, if you go on my channel, I've had a bunch of interviews with politicians, elected officials, bureaucrats, whatever, talking about what happens when the cars drive themselves. Do we need DMV? Will drunk driving go away? Will we need as many police officers? Will we really need traffic enforcement anymore once the cars are driving themselves? Yeah, will speed laws be relevant anymore when they're electric vehicles that are much more efficient and and they're much safer. Can we go faster? Um, will we destroy defense? Will we reduce the need for lawyers? There's so many criminal cases, not just drunk driving and stop signs, traffic lights, or speeding, but like actual drug cases often start with a traffic stop. So how many? And then one of the most common crimes is driving with a suspended license. All these cases go away, and that's more than half the cases. Probably significantly more than half the cases start with a traffic stop. If traffic stops are gone, we just radically change the legal profession. Personal injury law is gone. There's no more car accidents because the cars don't crash. What happens there? You want to freak out a personal injury lawyer? Tell them that you think that self-driving cars are going to mean there's going to be no more car accidents, and watch them start sweating. I've had this conversation a couple times. They don't like it. They would rather people get hurt in car accidents than the problem go away. Crazy. I'm very cynical about lawyers. I am a lawyer. I'm mostly retired, but I'm very cynical about lawyers. Did I hear Ford and Argo AI will create defined service zones in Miami, and Lyft users will have the option to choose an autonomous Ford Escape to pick them up? I have not heard that. I think the defined service zones is an example of it doesn't really work. Why is Tesla Solar having troubles delivering? I believe that Tesla Solar has been having a lot of troubles delivering for a lot of reasons. I don't think solar panel deliveries has been difficult. I think it's been solar roof, and I think they've actually gotten over the hump. They are delivering in Florida now where they were held up before. I think they're making a lot of progress. And then, of course, they need enough Powerwalls to do the installs, and Powerwall got delayed because of the chip shortage. So there's a lot of different things going on there. The injury lawyers will find someone else to sue. Maybe, but I think that it's, at a certain point, it reduces the profit from suing people, and they find something else to do rather than somebody else to sue. Didn't watch your last show due to Alex was in the lead-in, so I stopped watching. GM is suing Ford over the name. I thought they dropped that suit. I don't know what's going on there. Would OEMs intentionally make a bad EV to sour the market? I'm sometimes that cynical, Matt. Sometimes I'm that cynical. I'm not sure. I think that's probably pushing it, but sometimes I do think that, yes. When do I think carbon credits end on tenacity? I think you mean zero-emission vehicle credits, David. So there's this common criticism from Tesla Q that, Tesla's not really profitable. They only make money from zero-emission vehicle credits, which is stupid. You could just as easily say Ford only makes money because they make crappy cars and they make money selling service and parts. If you took their service and parts off their revenue, would they still? How much would they lose? How much money would they lose? It'd be crazy. Oh, Ahmed, great question from Ahmed. How will I get FSD to my Podcar? Do I think Tesla will let others license its software? So my plan is that I don't think we're going to have a manufactured vehicle for 2 or 3 years. And the world of self-driving software will advance in those 3 years. My dream would be, yes, to license from Tesla. I think licensing from Tesla is going to be extremely expensive, at least initially. And the idea of the car is to be really, really cheap. So I'm not sure Tesla's going to be the best option unless they're willing to do it on a limited basis. I think Argo, Comma.ai, Mobileye. There's a lot of other companies that are working. I think Mobileye's Vision Suite has too many cameras, so that's going to be too expensive. I envision 3 forward cameras and 1 rear camera. 1 forward direct camera, 2 sort of side angle forward cameras, 120 degrees, and 1 camera facing back that's 120 degrees. We're not going to be... I kind of think the vehicle never backs up. Maybe we design the vehicle so it never backs up, and then the backup camera is less important. I'm open to changing the system and doing whatever's necessary, but I think that problem is a secondary problem that will solve itself in the next few years. The short-term problem is how inexpensive can we get the vehicle? How much lower can we get the cost per mile of operating the vehicle? Can we create a 1,000,000-mile vehicle that costs $2,500 and that its operating cost ends up being close to a penny a mile? And if we can achieve that, then we can sell rides to people in poor countries for 2 or 3 cents a mile and still make money and make the world a better place for those people. So an expensive version of FSD is going to go counter to that purpose. If FSD costs $20,000 at that point and Tesla's going to expect $20,000 for it, it makes the cost of the vehicle too expensive when you include the software. On the other hand, if it allows us to participate in the robo-taxi network, which I don't think will work, a whole nother conversation, Maybe for the boring system, Tesla would license it for less money. Who knows? Those are all down the road problems that I'm not worried about. First, it's can we build this thing? Do I think the supercharging network will be a part of the virtual power plant? No, I don't think that's part of it. I don't want to say it's impossible that they would put megapacks at superchargers and use them for that purpose, but I don't think so. Okay, I think I've answered all those questions. Let's see. If Tesla solves FSD with Pure Vision, how long till this can be sold to give Pure Vision to robots? I think that's clearly the intention, Michael. And in my interview with James Douma, search my channel for DOUMA, we talked about that. James Douma believes that the next step is humanoid robots. What's the building in the background above my left shoulder? This is the New York State Capitol. My wife used to work in that building as a legislative librarian. I used to go to that building as an intern for a lobbyist when I was in law school. I've been in the building for other reasons. It's in Albany, New York. What about the Mach-E thermal management system? Yeah, that was entertaining. If you haven't seen it, Sandy Monroe, Monroe Associates did a video comparing the Mach-E's thermal management system, the HVAC, to Tesla's, and it was extremely complex compared to Tesla. If Tesla solves FS, let's see. Can I please touch on the Berlin nonsense delays? So I don't know enough about Berlin delays. I hear rumors about delays in Berlin. At the same time, I've heard that things are going well in Berlin. I think we won't know for a little while. Marty Party asks, will Elon address when he thinks computers will be self-aware during AI Day? No. I think we are far from computers being self-aware. I think that's a different problem. Maybe we won't see it coming, but I think just being aware of, I mean, there to some extent, it is a form of self-awareness, right? I think we have a question, Marty, which you might have to answer is, are we really self-aware? Just like, look at my interview with Alex, my conversation with Alex about his videos. Is he really self-aware? Does he understand what he's doing? And, did he demonstrate self-awareness to you? What does self-awareness mean? If the vehicle knows where it is and knows what's around it, that's a form of self-awareness. What do you mean by self-awareness? That's a tough challenge. Dan Johnson says, can Tesla trust other companies using their charging network? Couldn't VW alter their charging software to purposely damage superchargers without getting noticed to hurt the Tesla brand? Well, VW probably is that evil, but the without getting noticed part is pretty unlikely. It seems very unlikely that would happen. You can be very, very paranoid, but I don't think that's the way it's going to work. And I don't think the charging software is that complicated. And Tesla will probably require that if you're going to use the network, you have to meet a certain standard. Juan Rivera breaking, hey, Mr. Warren, booked operating profit from FSD upfront subscriptions will increase from $600 million in 2021 to $102 billion in 2032, according to Loop Fund's Gene Munster. I think looking out to 2032, I'm not convinced that people will be paying for FSD or subscriptions when you go that far out. I think once FSD is working and the Robo-Taxi network is live, I think the upfront purchases of FSD and subscriptions may go away. It's really hard to know what the business model is at that point. Vayball Academy says, hey, Tesla fanboy. I'm an Elon fanboy, just to be clear. When will Cybertruck start production in Texas? I think Cybertruck production starts by the end of the year. I don't think deliveries start by the end of the year. I'd love to think otherwise. Thank you, Warriston, for your support. What did Brian Roshetsky say? All right, I don't see anything there. Let's see. Biologists judge self-awareness. This is Jim Whitehead, who's a moderator. Thank you for moderating, Jim. Biologists judge self-awareness. If the monkey or dog can recognize themselves in a mirror, I don't think a Tesla can do this now. I don't know, Jim. I mean, the Tesla's vehicle, the FSD is recognizing other Teslas. I don't think it's that big of a step to recognize itself. I don't know how important that is. That really a genuine test, though, of self-awareness? And what does that mean? Will a Mach-E be able to handle a supercharger? I think any vehicle should be able to use a supercharger. I don't think that's going to be a big challenge. Derek asked, do I think $199 is a fair price for FSD subscription, or should it be higher? I thought it should have been $299, but there's a reason why they're making the decisions that they're making, and I don't know what that reason is. Matt Burns asks, is Dojo a quantum computer? No, it is definitely not a quantum computer. It is a 16-bit It is using 16-bit floating point operations. Elon tweeted that 6 months ago. Something like that. Threat or pet, exactly, Michael Whitfield. Have I seen, thank you, Gary, for your support. Have I seen seabed mining of geologically pre-washed nodules featured on Auto Week? No, I have not seen that. Pre-washed nodules. Nodules of what? There's a 30-second delay on chat comments, Gary, but if you can, without giving money, if you can just tell me what you mean by nodules. I'm not sure. Nodules of what? Are we talking about nickel? Are we talking about lithium? Are we talking about rare earth elements? What do we mean? Do I think the Internet of Things will be a part of Tesla communicating with other cars through 5G on the road to self-driving? I think it could be more than 5G. Oh, thank you, Juan, for joining the channel. I think it could be more than 5G. I think it could be even Bluetooth. Maybe the cars could communicate with each other by Bluetooth. I think there's a lot of possibilities there. So Larry Apple says affordability is the reason. $300 is a lot of money. Yeah, look, $200 is a lot of money. I think the problem is that if you make FSD subscriptions too inexpensive, then you discourage people from buying it up front. And there's this, I think Tesla is experimenting to see how many people will sign up for subscriptions. Does that increase the take rate? Does it decrease the number of people who are buying the upfront? Because if it decreases that, maybe it ends up being a net negative. I think they're just experimenting to see what works. But practical reality is nobody's done this before, so they don't know what's going to work. Once FSD becomes self-aware, then it will realize humans are a virus and start killing like in Terminator. So Mitchell, the theory is that there's a moment when, not FSD, but when artificial general intelligence passes human level intelligence, there's this brief window of time where it might think that we're a threat. And then not long after that, it's so much superior to us that it doesn't even think we're a threat anymore, and we become more like a pet. So it's, can we get through the threat period so that it doesn't kill us before it realizes we're a pet? And will it be smart enough to realize, hey, I don't need to kill them. I'll be smart enough next week that this won't matter. Do I think Cybertruck will be sold in Great Britain eventually, but not for a while? 1,000 watching. Is it 1,000? Yeah. We've been at 1,000 for a while, actually. That's not the first time. A Tesla could be programmed to recognize itself in the mirror, but you could call it. No, it's just, does it look at the vehicle and identify, hey, it's a blue Model 3 with license plate such and such. Wait, that's my license plate. But is it meaningful? Why is it meaningful to recognize that it's you? All the minerals you mentioned, ticker SOAC. I think there's a lot of potential to get minerals in a lot of ways, but I think straight mining has been pretty effective so far. I think it's great if people find other ways of bringing up minerals. There's definitely some interest in minerals on the seabed, and maybe just below the seabed, but I haven't seen that yet. David Todd says, I'm still waiting. Who's going to win the space race? Blue Origin, SpaceX, or Virgin Galactic? I don't think it's even close. SpaceX has launched like 100 orbital missions, and Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic have only done small suborbital missions with tiny ships. I mean, Falcon 9 is much, much bigger than anything they've launched, and Starship is much bigger than that. And amazing how many kids can recognize a Tesla, yeah. Does FSD think Alex is a threat? No. I mean, you get this whole question of how many of us are real characters and how many of us are non-player characters. Am I a character or am I a non-player character? How would I know? Production, I'm wearing the wrong t-shirt. I have a t-shirt. If you go to elonbits.com, I've got a t-shirt that says what's outside. Maybe I should do a t-shirt on a non-player character. I think I need to do a non-player character t-shirt. All right, that's going to happen. Production rate for Cybertruck in 2022. Jay Morgan says 450,000. I think you're asking. I think there's 1 million people on the list. There's 1 million orders or more on the list for Cybertruck. I think the short-term goal for Tesla was to produce 250,000 a year. I don't think they'll have ramped enough to deliver 250,000 in 2022. I think they'll deliver 150 to 200,000 in 2022 if all goes well. And then the question is, in 2023, can they increase production of Cybertruck to maybe deliver 300,000, 400,000 Cybertrucks, and then the next year deliver 500,000? There's a lot of potential to ramp that. So we'll see what happens there. Do I think rear wheel steering in Cybertruck will be extra cost? No, I think rear wheel steering will be included on every Cybertruck. It doesn't. I don't think it makes sense for Tesla. Tesla doesn't like making a lot of options. Do something right and do it in volume and then sell it for more to everybody. Gary says seabed nodules equals virtually zero processing of raw materials. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's true. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a question of just how much. Yehuvi asks, Warren, are you a gamer? Do you play video games? Not anymore. When I was younger, I played a lot of video games. I was really into the video game Doom in particular. I think that's probably the last game I played in volume. For my 40th birthday, which was 15 years ago, I bought myself a PlayStation 3. I bought a few games, and then I realized I didn't like video game playing anymore. I've lost the taste for it. I can't explain it. I play like an... What is this? Lucid Motors is the best company ever. Okay. Okay, that's an interesting theory. That's funny. Elon's rocket is bigger than Jeff's. It moves better too. FSD has a picture of its world in its brain. That's consciousness, is this not? Well, this is the question. How do you define consciousness? I don't really know if we know how to define consciousness. Let's see. Can we get a follow-up video from your talk with Alex? You slammed him pretty good initially, and he still seems oblivious to his attitude towards Tesla. What are your thoughts on him now? I don't think there's a video and a follow-up on that. I think I've said it here. I don't think he's demonstrated self-awareness. Francois, thank you for your support. Have I read Starman or Mars Mission 1? I should read Starman. I met Eli. So that's a good idea. I just got 2 books in the mail. If you check my Twitter, I just got 2 books in the mail. I got Peter Thiel's book From Zero to One, which is going to help me with the Podcar. And a guy named San Eng sent me his book, which apparently is a bestseller on 10 Commandments of Investing. So I got a lot to read, and I don't read very often, so... But thank you, Francois, again, for your support. Am I an NPC? I think that's a good... Trent, don't you think that's a good t-shirt? Something like that? With FSD trucks, might a smaller container size become a standard? Fred, that's a great question. I actually think that applies to the Boring Company, and not necessarily smaller container size, but maybe different container construction and shape. So if you build a Boring Company tunnel that's, let's say, 12 feet in diameter after you put the concrete in to shore it up, the current size containers are a tight fit, and they're very bulky. You know, they're designed to survive, you know, life on top of a ship with the horrible weather in the ocean. So if they're traveling in a tunnel, maybe you can make them more aerodynamic and make them out of lighter weight materials so that they're more efficient in that way, and maybe curved a little bit so they fit in the tunnel better. I think there's a lot of potential to do something with containers once Boring Company tunnels become used for volume shipping. Elon's real goal is to colonize Mars. Will he have ever grown the company enough to pay a dividend? Yes, I think when the Robo-taxi network goes live, I think Tesla will generate so much cash that they will have to pay dividends, because they won't be able to use the cash meaningfully. At some point, they'll generate so much cash they just can't hold it. P. Robinson's, what's my favorite band? Do I like the Grateful Dead? I like a lot of different bands. I used to say that Pink Floyd was my favorite band. I'm not a fan of Pink Floyd's anti-Israel attitudes, but I still really like Pink Floyd. I think the song Wish You Were Here is probably my favorite song. AC/DC is one of my favorite. I pretty much just like classic rock. So AC/DC is one of my favorite bands. Classic rock in general. I do listen to some modern music, but Taylor Swift, strangely enough, I don't know. I like a lot. XYPS has been removed. Can you explain how Starlink can help Netflix, Disney stream videos better in the future than now? Well, I think they already stream videos well. I think the key question is, what's the optimal configuration for the satellite network to deliver streaming video effectively? And you're going to have lower... You got the planet, right? And you've got some satellites that are really close to the Earth and some satellites a little further out. They're really, really close. All the orbits in low Earth orbit are really, really closer than this is going to look. So the ones that are in low Earth orbit, the lowest orbits, are really important for low latency transmission, which streaming doesn't need low latency. So you use the ones that are in slightly higher orbits for streaming, maybe. I think there's going to be an interesting question of optimizing the network to make that work. Is Tesla still going to do AI Day? I think so. I don't know when. Vasa Law Firm t-shirt. Interesting idea. If the Vasa Law Firm is watching and you guys want to do a t-shirt, I like the idea. Let's talk about it. I like the band Rush, but I wouldn't call them my favorite. Today's Tom Sawyer. Rush, I don't know. I went to high school and graduated in 1984. Went to college in 1988. I always liked Prince. I like a lot of different... The music of the 80s is probably my... Music of the 70s and 80s is probably my favorite. Not sure. I think once you get to the 90s, I start to lose it. But I still listen to modern music. I don't know. Do I think Tesla dividend will be more than less than 1%? It's too hard to predict that. It depends what the share price is at the time. I don't really think that much about dividends either. I don't think it matters that much to me. It matters to Elon because he's going to use the dividend to pay for Mars. What do I love about Lucid? They haven't sold anything to love yet. Let's see. Just looking at the questions here. Yoke on Model 3. I do think yokes will come to other vehicles, yes. I think Performance Model 3, Performance Model Y will probably get yokes. If Apple will want Apple Car, why not Tesla phone? I think that Elon likes to enter markets that are ripe for disruption, where the existing products are not that advanced, and there's an opportunity to come in with something that's really innovative to change things up. I don't think there will be an Apple Car. I don't think Apple has any chance of coming up with a car. And I don't think it makes sense for Tesla to build a phone. Android phones and iPhones are good enough. Elon uses iPhones, so he seems to be happy with it. If he thought the phones were that bad and there was an opportunity, he would have made one by now. Do I think Elon has the capability for another venture, or is he maxed out? I think he has the capability. I think in about 5 years, Elon will step away from Tesla. Tesla will have become successful enough that he doesn't need to manage it anymore, and he will move on to focus on the Mars colony and Neuralink. Will he have room for another project? Maybe, bandwidth in his head. I don't know. My gut is no. I don't think he'll do another startup, but, he probably doesn't need to focus much on the boring company. I think he's really, really passionate about Neuralink and SpaceX, and that's what he's going to turn his focus to. I do like the Bengals. I don't listen to them much anymore. I don't hear them, but I like them. Could the new $25,000 compact be named Model E so Elon can still spell sexy? I believe the answer is no. I believe that Ford has some sort of trademark on Model E, and that's why the Model 3 is named the Model 3. So 98% of lawyers give the other 2% a bad name. Is it really 98%? I think it might be 99. No, in all seriousness, I do know a lot of really good lawyers who really help people, and I would say that the percentage of lawyers who are good is much higher than 98%. It's probably more than 50%, but the percentage who aren't good is much larger than it should be. What is the combined maximum production capacity? And there's a lot of other biases in the legal system that just make things bad in a lot of different ways. What is the combined maximum production capacity if all factories come online? So I think the answer to that question is about 6 million vehicles a year. I think that Austin, Giga Texas, leaving out the future car, the Model Q, Model 2, whatever the vehicle I mentioned on Battery Day is, leaving that vehicle out and just going with Model Ys and Model 3s, Model S's and X's and Cybertruck. I think Giga Texas is going to ultimately produce about 2.5 million vehicles a year. Giga Berlin will ultimately produce about 1.5 million vehicles a year, maybe 2 million vehicles a year. And then Shanghai and Fremont between them will produce over 1.5 million vehicles a year. And that gets you to around 6 million if I have my numbers right. So that's my ballpark. So I believe that my number for 2026 is around 18 million vehicles, with the 6 million that we just talked about and 12 million from the vehicle for Battery Day. That's my gut guess. Let's see. People are talking about Apple making a car. Look, Apple's not going to make a self-driving car because Apple can't make... Look, I've got an iPhone, okay? I've got an iPhone. Voice recognition sucks. The autocorrect sucks. They can't get autocorrect right, and you think they can drive a car? Come on. they're nowhere close to being able to do that. What do you need when you have 100 lawyers buried up to their necks in sand? More sand. I like it. Is the term China weakness FUD talking point? Matt, I don't understand your question. Tack on 3 or 4 more buildings for 20 million. So Wolf, I think that there's the 6 million for the existing factories that we know about. There's 12 million from the vehicle, the purpose-built robo taxi they talked about on Battery Day. 18 million's a lot, and don't forget there will be competition, particularly from China. There will be other low-cost electric vehicles made in China that will have some kind of decent self-driving software by 2026 or 2027. So I think there's a lot of possibilities. Jim Whitehead says, won't Elon have to start building 2 more factories next year to keep up the high growth rate? So Jim, I think they're going to announce 3 factories rather than 2. I think there will be this Battery Day vehicle, I think, will be produced in China, the US, and Europe. So there'll be 3 factories. And I think those factories will be much more productive than the existing factories. So if the existing factory can make 1 million, the new factory will be able to make 2 to 4 million. I think it's the productivity of the factory that's actually going to be the big driving factor. But if it's not enough, maybe they'll announce a 4th factory. Like I think Giga Japan makes a ton of sense. I'm convinced that we're going to see Giga Osaka, but we'll see. I mean, that's speculation, but who killed the electric self-driving car? Siri, I like it. Ask Siri who killed the self-driving car. So I think Shanghai is an obvious location for the 2023 Gigafactory, Terra Factory, whatever we're going to call it. Texas is an obvious location for it. I would say Berlin, but I think Elon has to make a decision whether he's satisfied with how Germany has treated Tesla in the development of the Berlin Gigafactory, and maybe Ireland. I think there's a lot of potential for that. Let's see. I don't think India makes sense. Any news? I haven't heard any news from any insiders on 4680. No. One of my guys retired. Will there be a way for us Tesla battery geeks to get our hands on a couple of samples of the new Tesla 4680 battery soon? I don't think so. Not anytime soon. Should home builders get rid of garages and driveways and new designs to prepare for robo-taxis? What changes would you make? I have a video where I talk about Tesla should build houses. And I do talk about that I think, I don't know if driveways necessarily go away because you're still going to have a setback from the street. But I do think that garages become less relevant. I would love to see, if you follow, Kimball Musk has a startup called Square Roots. What if you had a garden built into the house? What if you had a vertical gardening built into the house? So you replace the garage with a vertical garden and you're able to grow your own produce. And you have HVAC built in so you can provide the right environmental conditions for your grow room. Maybe you're growing pot, I don't know. There's a lot of things you could grow, right? 420, it's the 420 room. Any point of view of BYD's ability to compete with Tesla? I definitely think that BYD has potential. I don't think we need to talk about competing with Tesla, though. The 98% of the vehicles produced are internal combustion engine vehicles. If you're building an EV, your goal isn't to compete with Tesla. Your goal is to compete with ICE. If you can replace internal combustion engine vehicles, you're competitive. You don't need to worry about competing with Tesla. If you can't beat internal combustion engine vehicles, you're not going to be better than Tesla. Will the Podcar license Tesla's FSD software? I addressed this earlier. We'll address some licensed software from somewhere and hardware possibly. I'd love it to be Tesla. I have a feeling Tesla's going to be too expensive. I did talk to someone at Tesla about the concept vaguely, but it was too premature to actually have a meaningful conversation. If Tesla is producing 2.5 million vehicles, is that half of that Cybertrucks? No, I think it's probably more than 500,000 Model Ys. I think it's probably like between Model Y and Model 3, it's 1.5 million vehicles, and then maybe ideally it'd be 1 million Cybertrucks a year, but I don't know if it'd be quite that many. I think, and what else will they produce in Texas? It's a good question. I think that it's going to be a lot of Model Ys, some Model 3s. I think there's an interesting question about, and I've said this before, maybe I should make a video about this. Was Model 3 obsolete? I'm going to make a video about that. Will Model 3 become obsolete? That's an interesting topic. Let's see. New factories just streaming with no data. India, Poland, South American country, Russia. I don't see Russia. Poland, Eastern Europe. I think somewhere in Eastern Europe is possible if Berlin stinks more. What was it? Hungary, um, Serbia. I think there's a lot of potential in Czech Republic. I think there's a lot of potential in some parts of Eastern Europe. India, I don't see it happening anytime soon. Could Tesla sell defective 4680 cells to us? I don't think that's going to happen. I like the idea. I think they recycle the defective cells. Do I think Tesla staffing up for Berlin and Austin will hurt Q2's income statement? No, I don't think that's a problem at all. No, so I think Giga Texas is 250,000 Cybertrucks per year on the current plan, but I do think they can ramp more and grow to more if the demand is there. Given Elon's clear threat to huge corporations, why hasn't he had a, quote, accident? And is this a growing risk? I would say that risk is past. It's like too late. I have my own theory that Elon is actually a alien from the culture, from special circumstances, sent down to Earth to get us ready for the transition to life as an advanced species. So, or to get us past the collapse of Earth for some reason, get us off the planet. If autonomous vehicles will be traveling in boring tunnels at high rates of speed, how will the Podcar keep up? The Podcar should be able to go as fast as the other vehicles. I certainly think that in the long run, the Podcar will go at least 80 miles an hour and 100 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour. I don't know. I don't know what the top speed is going to need to be in the boring tunnels. Will more than one factory be needed? And I suppose you'll have higher speed tunnels and lower speed tunnels. Will more than one factory be needed for semi? And I should say, when my calculations about the Podcar, I had one version that was like 260 miles an hour, which is of course nonsense. But will more than one factory be needed for semi? Yes, in the long run, they will need more than one factory for semi. China is going to need a semi factory. How do I think robo-taxis will affect congestion in urban centers? I think tunnels will solve that problem, but I think it's really hard to answer that question because my Podcar robo-taxis are going to shrink the dimensions so that they half the width and maybe half the length, and so they take up less road space. And I talked to somebody highly placed at Tesla about that, and that was one of the benefits they saw in the Podcar. When will full FSD and robo-taxi network go live? I think full FSD goes live the end of this year, maybe early next year, hopefully the end of this year, and the robo-taxi network goes live somewhere in the world before the end of 2022. Hopefully South Florida, where I live. And Las Vegas seems like a really, really good place because they have the boring tunnel system is the furthest ahead. Are UFOs just billionaires from other planets? That's a good question, but I don't know the answer to that. Does it require fossil fuels to generate electricity? What will power our electric future? Solar and wind. And nuclear, maybe. Do I think Elon will ask his design team to add a rain barrel collector to keep the cars constantly full of green washer fluid in good weather? No. I don't think Elon's going to do that. Do I think they'll announce a new factory Monday? Good question, Alexandra. No, I don't think this is the place for them to announce a new factory. I think they will announce new factories in 2022 once they've made a significant progress on the ramps of Giga Texas and Giga Berlin. Elon said that in a conversation with Sandy Munro. Do I think it's possible to build a boring tunnel from Orlando to Miami? Yes, I think they should build a boring tunnel from Orlando to Miami. I think it should be from Orlando to West Palm Beach and then from West Palm Beach down to Miami. But I could also see one going direct from Miami through under the Everglades to Orlando. Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. Elon just tweeted, I guess you mean. He was at Giga Texas yesterday. Team is making excellent progress. Building will be almost a mile long when finished. Really cool. Solar and wind will power cars. Get with the mission. Yes. We need a boring tunnel to Key West. I think a boring tunnel to Key West, if you know the Florida Keys, a boring tunnel, the Florida Keys, which is from Key Largo, basically comes down from Miami through Homestead and you cross over to Key Largo. From Key Largo to Key West, it's a one lane each way highway pretty much most of the way, and it's terrible traffic, absolutely terrible traffic. Running a boring tunnel under that would make tremendous sense. Be a huge advantage for the Florida Keys. Whether they want it or not, I don't know, but it would be great. Do I believe Tesla's worldwide could someday use Starlink as their internet source? No. I don't think that makes sense for Teslas to use Starlink generally. I don't think they need the bandwidth, and I don't think they're designed for the size of the antenna that they need. Haven't seen many people talk about Xpeng's $25,000 car. Is it any threat to Tesla's future $25,000 car? No EV is a threat to Tesla. Any EV needs to be a threat to internal combustion engines before we worry about them being a threat to Tesla. If they're not a threat to the internal combustion engine cars, they're not a threat to Tesla. Orlando to Tampa makes perfect sense. Maybe Tampa to Orlando to Canaveral. When is AI Day? We don't know. Will a Podcar hold my golf clubs? Probably not for golf clubs. I haven't measured what it would be for golf clubs. It's possible that golf clubs would fit, but it's not really the design objective. It's not intended for golf clubs. So maybe. Unlikely, but maybe. Will LA ever get a boring tunnel? Traffic is horrible. I think that boring tunnels coming to LA. I think they're talking about Rancho Cucamonga right now. But I think definitely it's in the Boring Company plans to do Los Angeles. Only need a 5-iron and a Podcar. Yeah, I think if you leave the driver out, it's more likely to fit. Do you think that leave the driver and the 3-wood out, you got a much better shot? Can you limit yourself to a 5-wood? Do you think Tesla should build a tunnel from a factory to a rail yard so the new cars could drive themselves onto a rail car for shipping? No. I don't think that's necessary. I think that the Tesla Semi is probably going to end up being more efficient delivering vehicles to locations than rail anyway. What about Google data centers on Starlink satellites? I don't think that Starlink satellites are a good place for data centers. Data centers generate a lot of heat, and satellites are a bad place to generate heat. It's very hard to get heat off a satellite. People don't understand that problem. There's not enough molecules to take the heat away, so it's a big problem. So I don't think data centers make sense on satellites. Supposedly expanding the Vegas Loop to include Stadium Resort World and Wynn. Yes, no, they're doing lots of expansion there. Tunnel will never be approved now that Sunrail is being built Orlando to Miami. Governor DeSantis has been very, very positive about Boring Company tunnels. The Miami mayor has been positive. I actually talked to the Orlando mayor's office. They like the idea. Fort Lauderdale mayor loves the idea. I think we're going to see a lot of tunnel stuff happening in Florida. Tesla car launch in India. Elon just tweeted it's not happening yet. Waiting for India to lower its tariffs on EVs. Are drivers of Podcar State Route 60? I don't know where Brandon, Florida is, but I've been on State Route 60 and I don't think the traffic's that bad, but maybe that's a different spot. Are drivers of Podcars called pod people? There's no drivers of Podcars. The cars drive themselves. How about making a raised version of your Podcar with a storage unit? Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's just get the basic vehicle down. We can worry about future versions way down the road. How many more gigafactories are needed to 10 million production capacity? So my theory, cherry picker, is that the next generation gigafactory that will be producing the 2023 Tesla Compact, call it the Model Q, Model 2, whatever, that factory may be able to produce as many as 4 million vehicles a year. And if that's the case, just one of them on top of the existing factories we know about would be 10 million, but 3 of them would get us to 18 million. And that's where I think it's going. If they only have a production capacity of 2 million vehicles a year, then you need more of them. So Giga Osaka makes sense, and maybe a couple of other locations. I think Giga Thailand makes more sense than Giga India, but my India friends hate that. Elon keeps referring to a factory making the factory, but are there any examples? No, he doesn't talk about a factory making the factory. He's talking about a machine that builds the machine that builds the machine. Tesla is the machine that builds the machine, the factory that builds the machine, the car. I don't think he's talking about a factory making factories. Bubble car, I wouldn't call it a bubble car. Doesn't necessarily look that much like a bubble car, but that's not the idea. Teardrop car might be closer. I don't actually have a design yet for the cover. I'm thinking like a teardrop, but I'm not sure that's the right answer. What will come first as a fully running paid service, an FSD Podcar fleet or FSD bus? Both will need major legislation changes. Not in Florida. Florida already has legislation. We're good to go here. I would say FSD bus will probably come before my Podcars. Can the cars deliver themselves with full self-driving? Yes. Will Tesla build wind turbines or only stick with solar? I have thought that Tesla might have some kind of new wind energy generation device in the Skunk Works somewhere, but I haven't seen any hint of it. So far, I think it's only solar. I think that the question is, does anybody at Tesla come up with a new design for wind that could be installed on a home, for example, that would be more efficient? The problem right now is you need these big devices, and everything I've seen, wind works better in large devices. So I think it's unlikely Tesla has a solution for it, but we'll see. It would. It's a theory I have that they're going to come up with some sort of wind device. Do I think the production throughput, what was that question? Do I think the production throughput will increase significantly with the two casting design? Yes. Yes, the two casting design means that they're able to produce more quickly. Fewer processes means they move quicker. Will it be EV cars when launched in India or normal fuel model? Tesla doesn't make anything other than an EV, so I don't know what you're referring to. FSD is also solving the problem of object recognition. What other revenue streams could FSD AI create for Tesla? I think we're going to learn more about that on Battery Day, but humanoid robots can do a lot of things. I love the idea of roofing robots to make solar roof installs go better, but James Dalma thinks I'm wrong about that. Boring Florida is a go, Alex asks. Fort Lauderdale, Florida is working on a boring company project right now. I think we're going to have an answer within a few weeks as to whether they're going forward with it. It seems likely that there will be a Miami project, and then actually one of my local county commissioners here in Palm Beach County was talking about boring tunnels. So there's a lot of potential there. When will Tesla have to announce construction of a new factory to keep to their target of 20 million vehicles by 2030? Will it be one factory every 2 to 3 years from today? I think that Tesla is going to announce 3 factories. In 2022, Tesla will announce at least 3 new factories. That's what I think. So, and I think they're going to get to 20 million vehicles well before 2030. And the factories will produce more vehicles per factory per year. Gary says Podcar small fat tires in lieu of suspension. My vision is basically standard car tires, smaller wheels and tires, but the smallest standard size I could find. 155/80 R13 tires, and maybe deflated in lieu of suspension. But I think probably the manufactured Podcar would have some kind of suspension. We have to see what it's like without a suspension. I have a feeling the ride will be too rough. So we're going to have to have some. We're going to have some kind of suspension. The question is how much can we limit how simple can we make the suspension, and low cost can we make the suspension so it doesn't cost us too much to make it. What was that? Trademark your name before sharing it. Yeah, exactly. Well, I have a lot of things I want to do with the name of the vehicle before I share it. Will Podcars link together, draft each other for increased efficiency? I think that's likely, but the design I have in mind for the Podcar is so aerodynamically efficient, I think that becomes unnecessary and not that helpful. I think that's generally a question for robo-taxis, is will they be able to connect and in some way draft? And I think they've talked about that for Semi, that they would, what is they called? Convoy or something? There's a term they use for it. Check out the merch, elonbits.com. Elon Be Less Wrong, the most popular t-shirt. Sprite says wind energy has not much room for improvements. It's already very good. I think you're correct. I don't want to say it's impossible that Tesla will come up with a better way. They got really smart engineers at Tesla. Tunnel from Jacksonville down to Miami to Tampa and Pensacola, Florida. I think there's a lot of potential. I don't know if roofing robots would need to be humanoid. I think that's I think roofing robots could be custom designed and they wouldn't necessarily be humanoid. Michael Whitfield says you can only make love with yourself in a Podcar. Okay, so one of the ideas I had for the car that is not going to be the name for the car is Kara Sutra. Kara Sutra. Get it? But we're not doing that. That's not the name. So if you have a fully enclosed opaque shell on the car, then you could do whatever you want in the car, and maybe the car helps you. I don't know. That's just one of my silly ideas. Kara Sutra. T-shirt idea. What would Elon do? I don't like that one. Doesn't work for me. All right, let me scroll down here. Let's see. What CAD software do you use for prototype Podcar? I don't know. My friend is going to do the CAD software. What is this? Elon Be Less Wrong sounds like telling Elon to sound less wrong. It's an Elon quote. He said, we're always wrong. Our goal is to be less wrong. What if you change the design of roof so it's easier for robots to build it? Well, that's a good idea in the long run, but the problem is we have existing roofs that need to be replaced, and you can't redesign the existing roofs. Could Fremont be refurbished to Gen 3 factory? I think that we are seeing progress on Fremont. I think that ultimately Model Y and Model 3, if they continue building Model 3, will both go to double, front and rear castings and take advantage of all the improvements. Jim Whitehead says, will they connect up Fort Lauderdale and Miami tunnels and test for high-speed Hyperloop? Fort Lauderdale and Miami aren't far enough apart for Hyperloop to matter. It's like 20 miles at most. Fort Lauderdale and Miami are really close, so I don't think Hyperloop matters at that short of a scale. It's Orlando to West Palm Beach or Orlando to Miami where Hyperloop would start to make a difference. Or to Tampa, or, that's where Hyperloop would start to matter. This Hyperloop, is potentially 1,000 miles an hour, and, it's only like 100 miles from West Palm Beach to Orlando, or 120 miles or something like that. So I think Hyperloop is really, I think there's a question of where is Hyperloop needed. When will Starlink IPO? I think it's a few years away. Smart car size, 3 feet wide by 8 feet long, maybe 7.5 feet long. Smart cars, every other small car that I've seen has tended to be significantly wider than 3 feet. Any existing car that's on the road today, even golf carts, are wider than 3 foot width. The 3 foot width is ideal because it means you could have two vehicles in one lane, and it minimizes the frontal surface area, so it reduces drag. 365 Solve asked, do I think they will rebuild new factory or refurbish existing factories? I don't think the factories need to be rebuilt. I don't think the gain from that is that high. I think if they can improve them, like they're building them in tents. John Irwin says, I'm overtired contractor. Or you mean retired? And I thought about the roofing robots. There are a few steps that robots could be used and others can't see how. I think that there are definitely things that robots, the big thing is, can you reduce the amount of time that humans have to spend on the roof? Because that saves lives. Because falling off roofs is really bad for humans. And if you can get robots to do tasks that mean that humans need to be on roofs less, then you have reduced the risk of humans doing those jobs. And that's a big part of why I think the roofing robot's a good idea, just to save lives. If climate change and green technology is so important, why is there no movement to standardize building codes to mandate clean south-facing roofs to allow cheaper installation of solar? It's a great point, Bob. Because government stinks. Because the claims of people who are big climate change, who are concerned about climate change, who run for office, are probably lying, and they don't really care about climate change. They're just running on an issue to get votes, and they don't actually care. I'm a little cynical. Do you really want me to go on to that? Let's see. You guys are nowhere close to my name for the car. I'm loving this. You guys have no clue what I'm thinking, which is great. The Podcar is strictly for one person. Period. One person. Could you squeeze a second person in to sit on the first person's lap? Maybe, but that's probably going to weigh too much. Warriston says, did I see Meet Kevin's video of his recent court appearance about his trademark nickname? Yes, I actually watched it live. I watched the court appearance live. I watched the conversation. I thought Kevin was fantastic. I tweeted about it too. Better than 90% of the lawyers I've seen, if not more. Well, Al Gore fit in a Podcar. His ego won't fit in the Podcar. His body will. Have I been annoyed about Elon Doge tweets? No, I think Elon Doge tweets are funny. Thank you, 365 Sol, for participating and supporting the channel. You could sell Viagra in a Podcar vending machine. I like it. I definitely think there's potential for vending inside robo taxis, whether it's Podcars or otherwise. Coffee, Coca-Cola, snacks, all kinds of things. Tunnels reduce the need to actively draft because the tunnels make all the air draft. One big air train tunnel. I think Hyperloop's going to be a bigger vehicle. I think the tunnels in general will be better with smaller vehicles. Let's see. Didn't Toyota make single-person Podcar prototype? There have been a lot of single-person vehicle prototypes in the past. They've all been designed to be driven by the occupant of the car. I want to design a car that is designed not to be driven by a person, but to drive itself. It is a radically different thing. I'm planning to manufacture the car in Florida, but that could change. John Irwin asked where I'm planning on manufacturing the Podcar. The short-term plan is to develop it and manufacture it in Florida, and that some of the initial markets would be in the Caribbean, like the Bahamas or Dominican Republic, and Florida is close to that. But I'm open to changing that idea, and Texas is certainly a place I would consider building them. And Texas does have some access to the Caribbean as well. And then ultimately, going to India, going to Egypt, going to particularly poor countries around the world. How many seat positions? The seat's going to be in the middle of the vehicle to keep the weight as centered as possible and ideally as low as possible in the vehicle. Do I think Tesla will be the largest company in the world, and by when? I think Tesla will be the largest company in the world. Well, that's relying on Wall Street, but I think the end of 2022. I think the stock price, it should be a $2.5 trillion company by the end of 2022, and then it's just a question of how big Apple is at that point. I don't have the image of it being a Klingon forehead. I'm not picturing that. I don't know if you're talking about Worf or something. Worf from Star Trek Next Generation or something else. I don't remember Kevin saying objection, Your Honor, or anything like that. I don't remember that coming up. Will your prototype have a screen for entertainment? One of the designs for the prototype is that there's a screen for either entertainment or looking outside. I think most people in the Podcar will be using their phones and won't need a screen. But I do think my original idea was that the vehicle was going to have screens. I'm not sure that that's going to continue or not. Probably. Did I hear about the pickup truck full of lawyers who all drowned when their truck went into the lake? No, I did not hear about that. Sounds like a very sad moment. Don't think Tesla can scale up that fast. India produced the Tata Nano, a 2,000-pound four-seat car, which was too cheap that no one wanted it. Financial disaster. Yeah, I think that cheap cars designed to be driven by people are not necessarily a good idea. What is this question? That was funny, Mark. I think we should get rid of this guy, though. A handful of spades. If you make offensive comments again, you're going to get blocked from the channel. How about a beach podcar version? It's not designed for the beach. It's not designed to be fun. It's not designed to be high performance. It's designed to be low cost transportation. Cheapest Uber you can imagine. Sprite XP, people keep telling me to look up vehicles, and I keep looking up vehicles, and they keep being something different than I want to do, and I don't see how that's helpful. I know what I want to do. We're getting close, making progress. I'm hoping in a few weeks I will have a CAD design, and maybe I'll have a render. I can show you guys what it's going to look like for the alpha prototype, not the final vehicle. All right, let's see. We're nearly 2 hours in. Calls on Tesla for earnings. I don't understand. If you're referring to options, I don't talk options. It's not something I'm interested in. Can't see government spending the astronomical amounts of money needed for infrastructure for Podcar autonomous cars. I don't see government having to spend any money at all for my Podcar autonomous cars. That's not an infrastructure requirement. They're designed to be driven in places where to be operated in the infrastructure that they're given. No plans for a Podcar boat. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's how many miles per gallon equivalent will the Podcar get? I wouldn't say it in those terms. I would say I'm probably aiming for at least 10 miles per kilowatt hour. And I don't think 20 is necessarily out of reach. If we can get to more than 13 miles per kilowatt hour, we're getting the cost of the electricity per mile down below a penny, and that's going to be a big controlling factor. So I certainly want to hit 10 miles per kilowatt hour. I think 20 miles per kilowatt hour is possible, and I'm just not sure. Breaknet Trent asks, will the Podcar be safe? I do not expect the Podcar to be crash-worthy. I think it will probably be safer than a motorcycle, but it will not be anywhere comparable to a vehicle, a car. It's going to be 1,000 pounds. If it's hit by a 5,000-pound SUV, you won't want to be in it, no matter how well made it is, and it's not going to be that well made. How much can we miniaturize the FSD hardware right now? FSD hardware is really small. I don't think that's a challenge. The hardware for FSD is tiny. What do I think is going to happen tomorrow to the Tesla stock? It's going to fluctuate. It's going to go up and down. Semi-production, any guess? I think that Tesla is scaling up soon to produce 5 semis a week. And gradually they'll scale to produce a lot more. I don't think I'm gonna go live tomorrow after the results. I think I'm gonna do an edited video after the earnings call. I was thinking about going live after, and I feel like, I like doing these live streams. I enjoy doing the Sunday live stream, but I feel like most of my live streams, YouTube does not treat them well. My Sunday live streams do okay, but YouTube just does not seem to treat my other live streams that well. So I'm probably gonna be doing fewer live streams in the future. I think my edited videos do better. Craig says, so you plan to make your own car but use Tesla FSD. I plan to make my own car and use whatever self-driving software I can get that works, that's reasonably priced. Tesla FSD will probably cost too much, but I am in touch with people at Tesla and maybe they'd let me try it out. I just think that ultimately the cost of Tesla FSD will be too high for the application, but I'm hoping I can work something out with them. We should invest in SpaceX. How can we do it without all the hassle? I think it's hard to invest in companies that are not publicly traded. You can invest in Ron Barron's fund, but you would only have like 4% of that investment in SpaceX. You can use Shares Post or EquityZen to try to buy into funds that invest in SpaceX, but the deals are terrible. Wariston asks, what are thoughts on Arcimoto? So, I think Arcimoto is cool. I think it's cute. I don't see it ever succeeding as a volume vehicle. I think it's way too expensive for what it is. I don't think it's I think they're like $18,000. You can buy a Volkswagen Passat for $18,000. Sorry, I bought my Volkswagen Passat new for $18,000. It seats 5 people. It goes 700 miles on the highway on range. Why would you buy an Arcimoto over a Volkswagen Passat if you wanted something for Now, I think the price of the Passat is up compared to the $18,000 I paid for it. I got a deal on it. But I think you can buy a reasonable 4 or 5 passenger vehicle for less than $20,000. Why would you buy an Arcimoto instead? If you're rich and you want it as a toy, sure. If you want it for a practical application for people, I don't think it makes sense. Have I tried any battery-powered go-karts? I don't remember. I mean, I've driven go-karts, not go-karts. I've driven golf carts. I don't think I've driven any battery-powered go-karts yet. But what I want to do is significantly different. I've looked at battery-powered go-karts, and they generally have much less battery capacity and much less... The wheels are different. The motors are different. I mean, the motors are in the ballpark. I think there's potential. There's some comparison there, but I have looked at it, but I haven't ridden one or driven one, no. Will Model Q use version 4 chip? Probably. I don't know if they're going to bother producing the version 4 chip if the version 3 chip is good enough. I don't know. That's a good question. Volkswagen XL1 is the most efficient $150,000 efficient supercar. Okay. $150,000. I want to make a car for $1,500. Yeah, Arcimoto's a rich person's toy. What's my final take on my interview with E4Electric? I think Alex lacks self-awareness and doesn't recognize that he's hurting himself by making videos that are unfair towards Tesla. When Tesla hits $20,000 a share, will you book a seat on New Shepard? No. I have no interest in riding on New Shepard. I have no interest in riding on Virgin Galactic. I'm not that excited about going to space. I think the Dear Moon mission, if I could get on a mission where you fly around the moon or you fly to the moon, Mars is too long of a trip. Going to orbit doesn't seem as exciting to me as going to the moon. I think the potential for going to the moon would be really, really cool. Will I make a premium Podcar to help finance the mass market Podcar? No, I'm doing it wrong, Thaddeus. I'm doing it wrong. I'm going for the mass market first. My theory is Tesla is going from the top down. And if you try to go for the middle, you might get there after Tesla's already there. So I'm trying to go from the bottom up. And I don't think that there's a market. I think the market for... I don't think Podcar is ever going to be a premium vehicle. I don't think that's the idea. V3 with pure vision is better than V4. I'm not sure about that, Mark. I think we're going to find... I wonder if we're going to find out more about version 4. Personally, think all devices should be wireless. I hope Tesla starts a wireless technology company where everything is wireless. I don't get what you mean by that. I don't think I'm too old to go to Mars. I've actually heard that older people are better candidates for Mars because we're less vulnerable to radiation. Sorry, regarding E4Electric, I think that Alex, I I felt that Alex is not being completely honest. I think he's not honest with himself, maybe, about what's happened with him. No, what I'm saying, Larry, is I don't think he's aware that the way he's changed his channel has created problems with his audience, and it's a bad long. That's at the beginning of my video about him. I said, like, YouTubers lose their way. Like, I try to focus on making videos I'm passionate about. I don't chase the algorithm. I don't chase the views. I don't chase the revenue. I just make movies about what I want to make, or make videos about what I make videos about. And if you watch them, you watch them. You don't, you don't. If you lose that passion, then, and Tim Dodd from Everyday Astronaut said the same thing. If you're not having fun, why are you making videos? Joe Bianchi says, Warren, what's up with your clay roof? There's no clay roof. We're going to have a concrete tile roof, and it starts tomorrow. South Korea or Japan should happen before India. Would those governments allow Tesla? I think they're both difficult, but I think Tesla could do it. I think Japan makes more sense than South Korea, because Japan is about twice the size of South Korea and wealthier, at least a little. And Tesla has a lot more connections with Japan than it has with South Korea. Will I do a podcast for my new Cybertruck when I get it? I will definitely make Cybertruck videos when I get it. Absolutely. That is a part of the plan. Warren, what is your handicap in golf? My handicap in golf is that I'm a crappy golfer. Last time I checked, my handicap was 20, and I think that's kind now. I haven't played a lot recently. Is your secret plan for Tesla to buy out your Podcar? No, I mean, I certainly think it's possible that somebody buys me out if I actually become successful, and I would probably sell if somebody came along and offered me money. But I think my plan is that I'm going to make it, and I'm probably going to fail. Something's going to go wrong, and I'm going to lose money, and it's not going to work. I haven't thought far. The idea has occurred to me that somebody will buy me out, but that's like so far down the road. It's like, look, just get the design down. Get the prototype built. You got to focus on the steps that are right in front of you and not spend too much time worrying. I kind of think about what's the market for this is the underlying idea, not who's going to pay me to buy me out. Don't you feel that Jews should stay out of space? Jiminy Glick asked. No, I don't think Jews should stay out of space. I think we need a Chabad on the moon. I'm the most non-religious Jew you'll ever meet. And Chabad is very religious. That was a joke. That's an inside Jewish joke. If you're not Jewish, you're probably not going to get it. Joe Bianchi said Alex is a reporter or journalist. Is that different than a YouTuber? He's not a journalist. I mean, look, we're all journalists. I don't know. He's clearly not an independent journalist. I think Jews in Space was a joke in a Mel Brooks movie. A 0 to 60 mile golf cart in under 6 seconds would double the pace of people playing through the golf course. Well, I'm thinking 0 to 60 time for the Podcar is like 15 seconds. That's my goal. Maybe faster, but it doesn't need to be faster than that. Will we be able to invest with you on the pod? Larry, that's a great question. I do think there's a chance that I will get to the point where I will do crowdfunding. And if I do crowdfunding, the YouTube channel is the second target for crowdfunding that I will come to. This channel is the second place. I have an email list of investors. There's a link to the email list in the description below. If you sign up on that email list, that's probably where I'm going to go first. And then the YouTube channel would be second. So, and maybe I'll ask my Patreon supporters before I ask the YouTube channel. I don't know. It may be that it depends on what I feel like my capital needs are and what kind of deals. I have some connections to people who have a lot of money who might be interested in supporting it, and I don't have to go through the crowdfunding process. But I'm pretty pleased with what I've seen in the crowdfunding process, so I think that's something I might do. If you look at how Boxable did their crowdfunding round, if I could do something like Boxable did and raise $5 million through crowdfunding, yeah, I probably would do that. Could Alex still be pro-Tesla but getting pushback from other EV makers to be less pro-Tesla? No, I think Alex lost his way completely, and he's busy making money. He views it as his job. Like, I don't view this as my job. I view this as a fun hobby that takes a lot of my time and arguably is my full-time job. But I can walk away from this tomorrow, and I'm, as I've said to people before, maybe this came up in my conversation with Alex, my net worth rose more from Tesla's stock gains in 2020 than I will probably ever make making YouTube videos. So, in my dreams, I will make $100,000 a year as a YouTuber, and I made a lot more than that on Tesla stock in 2020, and I expect to make a lot more than that on Tesla stock in the future. So, Um, Spaceballs. It was Spaceballs. That's what I was thinking. Gal Gadot in orbit. I love Gal Gadot. Have you considered doing a joint venture with local university engineers? I think that what's going to happen is I get to the point where we have a good working alpha prototype or beta prototype, and then I'm going to hire engineers. They don't have to be local university engineers. I'm going to hire a mechanical engineer and an electrical engineer and maybe a vehicle dynamics engineer, just a very small crew to like say, okay, let's go to something we can, and maybe a manufacturing engineer. So 2, 3, 4 engineers to say, okay, how can we get this so that we can manufacture this at low cost and have it be functional and do what we want it to do? I have not seen anything about an Elon hosted live event today for any of his companies. There's a live event tomorrow for the investor call after the earnings drop. 2 Jews in space, you and me. Cool. Upcoming tech correction, I don't know. Did I get a return on investment? Do you get a return on your investment with crowdfunding? Well, that's the idea. The idea is you invest in the company and the company grows 100x, and you got. So the goal would certainly be that if we do a crowdfunding round, that the crowdfunding investors would get a return on investment. Yes. I have not seen a 5,000. I have not seen any electric motorcycles. I'm aware of them. How will motor vehicle registration work on a Podcar? Does it fit the definition of automobile? The Podcar is not designed for U.S. roads. It is designed for third world countries, or poor countries, I should say. It is designed for boring company tunnel systems. It is not designed for that. Swedish law firm should buy advertising on your Podcar. I think advertising is another potential business model for the Podcar or any robo-taxi. Makes a lot of sense. Skill at talking and reading at the same time is impressive. I'm not sure that's impressive, but okay. Cameras for FSD should probably be same orientation and number as Tesla to be best for a Tesla computer. So I have ideas for where the cameras are going to be, but I don't think it's necessary to finalize where the cameras are going to be for the alpha prototype, or maybe even not for the beta prototype. We'll see about that. I think if we get further along down the road and we're happy with the alpha prototype and we're working on a beta prototype, I mean, I kind of have an image of where the cameras are going to go. There's going to be some cameras somewhere in the front of the car to look forward. There's going to be 2 cameras in the headlights, if we have headlights in the front corners, that will look forward and sideways, and then 1 camera in the back, and maybe we add cameras. I don't know. I would say thank you, Laurie. I think Rob Maurer is an excellent Tesla channel. I think that Dave Lee is a great channel. I love solving the money problem. Stephen Mark Ryan's a great guy. I think there's a lot of great Tesla channels, and I don't view myself as a Tesla channel. I view myself as an Elon channel and a tech channel in general. But I love Dave Lee. I love solving the money problem, Stephen Mark Ryan, and I love Rob Maurer. Actually, Limiting Factor to me is my favorite channel, and he's basically a Tesla channel as well. Battery chemistry, but Tesla. When will Tesla come out with a 25K model? I think end of 2023. I think it starts shipping, but we'll see. Will the car maybe light enough and small enough to add solar panels? There's no plans for solar panels on the Podcar. I don't think Tesla has any plans to put solar panels on any of their cars, except some idea Elon talked about solar panels on the Cybertruck, but I don't think it's going to happen. Rick, the golf carts are too big and they're not designed for long distance driving. They're not designed for efficiency. I've seen the BMW Isetta. I've looked at it before. They're vehicles that are designed to be driven by humans are not the design. You got to design a vehicle that's designed to not be driven by humans, to drive itself. Which channel is the most critical of Tesla but fair? Well, Marcus Brownlee's been critical of Tesla but fair. Arguably, Rich Rebuilds is critical of Tesla but fair. I don't know. I think I'm critical of Tesla but fair. I mean, I just made a video criticizing them on Solar Roof. Eric says, I give you 5% chance of success with your Podcar. That's optimistic. I appreciate the optimism. I'm not sure 5% is I think less than 5% is more likely. Will SpaceX go public ever? I think Starlink will go public within a few years. I think it's a long time before SpaceX goes public. I think maybe the Mars colony mission becomes a separate company and the rest of SpaceX goes public. I don't know how they're going to do that. So we were past 2 hours. No, Rich Rebuilds I just tweeted to Rich Rebuilds and he replied to my tweet. He has a video where he said the Model 3 Performance is the best daily driver he's ever driven, and that's not that long ago. Rich Rebuilds, he's critical about Tesla for people who want to modify their cars or they want to repair their cars. But he loves he thinks the Model 3 is an amazing car. So, you don't have a Sherp, Warren baby? I don't know what a Sherp is. I've seen Best in Tesla. I think I actually just did a presentation with him in Sweden, but I don't know his channel that well. What's the name? Bjorn, and isn't Bjorn in Europe kind of a good channel? All right, we're past to it. What will I name the Podcar? I am not revealing the name of the Podcar. I've revealed on this video the name of the company might be Alrita, A-L-R-I-T-A, my parents' first names. My father's Alan and my mother's Rita, so they all, which we can make fun of as being Alrita. Alrita, Alrita. Alrita's all right. That's not the name of the car. Amazon sells a $10,000 car you can order online. Great, that's not what I'm going for. Do you think NIO will compete with Tesla in the USA? Okay. I don't know how many times I have to say this. EVs do not need to compete with Tesla. They need to compete with internal combustion engine vehicles. 98% of the cars sold are gasoline-powered cars or diesel-powered cars. If your goal in building an EV is to compete with the 2% when there's 98% you can shoot for, you're doing it wrong. Mark, I don't know enough about right to repair to have an opinion. I just feel like I don't know enough to say. Rich Rebuilds is probably right, but I don't know enough. Will I make the Podcar out of recycled beer cans? Definitely not. Will I tell us the sex of the Podcar? The sex of the Podcar. I haven't thought about that. What are my thoughts on E for electric? I think I've been clear about my thoughts on E for electric. Okay, so we're more than 2 hours. I'm getting a little tired. Really quick, please check out the merch at elonbits.com. I really love these water bottles. Check out the t-shirts. Elon Be Less Wrong. Support this channel on Patreon. Thank you to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden and all my Patreon supporters for helping this channel grow. Thanks to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden, all my Patreon supporters. Patreon supporters get early access. Let me just really quick mention, tomorrow is the earnings call. The earnings report gets dropped, and then the earnings call happens, and I am planning to drop a video. A video will be made public Tuesday morning with my take on what we learned from the earnings call. Patreon supporters and YouTube exclusive content channel members will get access to those videos Monday night if all goes well. So if you're interested in thinking about what you've learned from the earnings call, please support the channel on Patreon. Please support the channel as an exclusive content member of the channel. George says, what are my thoughts on the BYD car company in China? They're claiming to have a $92 kilowatt hour cost battery. I think BYD is a really interesting EV company. They're more than an EV company. They produce their own lithium iron phosphate batteries. That's a good sign. I think there's a lot of potential for them to make a lot of EVs and get rid of a lot of internal combustion engine vehicles, but I don't know enough to say more than that. I hope they succeed at making EVs. So again, thanks to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden. Thanks to all my Patreon supporters. Check out the merch. Let's all be less wrong. And again, thanks everyone for watching.